So, somewhere in your house right now, there's a tiny, maybe like a 50-cent part, just quietly dying.
Yeah.
And in about 3 weeks, when the weather really turns, it is going to cost you $500 and basically leave you sweating on your couch for days.
It's the worst feeling in the world.
It really is. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are bringing you a look into an incredibly exclusive, highly specific data set that honestly changes everything we think we know about home maintenance.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got our hands on the internal raw service records of a 45-year HVAC veteran. That's Hartzell's Heat and Air, based right in the thick of central Oklahoma. And our mission today is to use this ground truth data to completely bust a massive myth about summer heat.
Right, and hopefully save you from a sweltering scheduling nightmare in the process.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is just how rare it is to get a look at this kind of unvarnished information. This isn't like slick marketing material from a manufacturer just trying to sell you a new air conditioner.
No, not at all.
This is a decade of actual in-the-trenches service tickets. I mean, we are talking about 3,171 documented service jobs spanning from 2016 all the way to 2026.
That is a massive pile of paperwork.
It really is. And within that pile, they've isolated 1,064 highly classified repair calls across 6 Oklahoma counties. That's Kingfisher, Canadian, Garfield, Logan, Blaine, and major counties. So this is raw reality from everyday people's homes.
And that raw reality points to a core premise that just, well, it blew my mind when I first looked at the files.
I had the exact same reaction.
Because I want you to imagine the absolute hottest, most miserable month of the year. For most of us, when we picture that peak system-breaking heat, we immediately think of August.
Right. August is like the heavyweight champion of summer misery.
Naturally. We assume August is the exact moment when our air conditioners are most likely just, drop dead from sheer exhaustion. But the data proves exactly the opposite.
It really does.
August is not the killer of air conditioners. June is.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive at first. I mean, we operate on this basic binary logic that machines break when they are pushed to their absolute maximum limit over a sustained period.
Right. Highest temperature should equal the highest rate of failure.
Exactly. But the timeline of when these no-cool repair calls actually peak tells a very different story.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I really need to understand the mechanics here. If you break down those 1,064 repair calls month by month, the pattern is staggering.
It's undeniable.
In May, they logged 25 no-cool calls. By July, it's 33. And in August, the month we all fear, the month where the sun feels like it's physically trying to harm you, it drops back down to 25 calls.
Yeah.
But June has a massive 47 calls. I mean, June produces almost double the failures of August.
It's a huge spike.
So if August is when the machine is working its absolute hardest, fighting against the highest ambient temperatures, why is June the executioner? It reminds me of an athlete.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Is this like a sprinter pulling a hamstring in the first 100 meters of a race because they didn't stretch and warm up, as opposed to collapsing from pure exhaustion at mile 20 of a marathon?
That sprinter analogy captures the physical reality perfectly. What we're looking at in the data is let's call it the idle from October to April effect.
Right.
For over half a year, these incredibly complex high-voltage systems have just been sitting there. They're mostly dormant. The oil in the compressors settles down.
Dust and debris accumulate on the outdoor coils.
Exactly. Moisture gathers in the electrical cabinets. During that downtime, hidden weaknesses quietly develop. Then June arrives and brings that first real stretch of severe heat.
So the system isn't just turning on for a quick 10-minute cycle to take the chill off the morning anymore.
No, suddenly it's being asked to run for 8 to 10 hours straight under really high pressure.
So it's the shock of going from 0 to 100 that does the damage, not the prolonged marathon.
Precisely. The first intense, sustained run is what exposes every single hidden winter weakness all at once. If a system makes it through June and July, it has essentially proven its mechanical integrity. By the time August rolls around, the weak components are already dead and buried.
That makes so much sense.
The systems running in August are the survivors. The first heat wave is basically the filter.
That reframes the whole concept of wear and tear. But if all these hidden weaknesses are secretly developing while the system just sits there, it makes me wonder what actually snaps when that first June heat wave hits.
Right, what's under the hood?
Yeah, because again, looking at the data, it completely flips our expectations upside down. When an air conditioner starts making a weird noise, what is the immediate fear every homeowner has?
We usually assume it's the most expensive part.
Oh, absolutely. It's the compressor. You hear compressor,
Yeah.
and your wallet just preemptively cries.
It does.
It's the massive, heavy heart of the whole system. We all think the big engine is what's going to blow out when the heat spikes.
That's a very common fear. But according to the classification of those 1,064 repair calls, compressor failures are near the very bottom of the list.
Really?
Yeah, out of an entire decade of data, there were only 28 calls for a failed compressor.
28 out of 1,000. That's statistically tiny. So what are the real killers then? Because the numbers on these other parts are wild.
The real culprits are the cheap, small parts, the unglamorous components that nobody really thinks about. Blower and fan motors accounted for 47 calls.
What?
Electrical and control issues took down 42 systems. Capacitors were responsible for 42 failures. Refrigerant leaks caused 48 calls.
Wow.
But the absolute biggest failure category, the undisputed champion of ruining an Oklahoma June, is condensate and drain problems, coming in at an incredible 67 calls.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does something as simple as a drain take down an entire multi-thousand-dollar home cooling system so catastrophically?
It's a great question.
I'm trying to picture this. Is it because, like, the pipes freeze over from a lack of airflow or something?
Actually, the physics point somewhere else entirely. It has nothing to do with ice and everything to do with sheer volume and biology. Yeah, this is where we have to understand what an air conditioner actually does. It doesn't just pump cold air into a room. It conditions the air by actively removing humidity. When warm, humid indoor air blows across the cold indoor coil, the moisture in the air condenses into liquid water. It's the exact same principle as a cold glass of iced tea sweating on a porch in the summer.
Right, the water drops beat up and roll down.
Exactly. An air conditioner running during an Oklahoma June can pull 20-plus gallons of water a day out of the air inside a typical home.
Wait, 20 gallons? That's practically a bathtub full of water being pulled out of the invisible air in your living room every single day.
It is a massive volume of water, and it all has to drain out through a PVC pipe that's usually only about 3/4 of an inch wide.
That's a tiny pipe for a bathtub of water.
It is. Now think about the mild weather in early spring. The system might run briefly and pull maybe 3 or 4 gallons of water a day. The drain line handles that trickle easily. But during that mild spring period, the constant low-level moisture inside that dark pipe creates the perfect environment for algae. Biological growth starts thriving in the drain pan and coating the inside of the lines.
So the algae is just slowly building a dam all spring.
And then June hits. The system kicks into overdrive, suddenly pulling those 20-plus gallons of water. And that drain line that was perfectly fine handling a trickle in May suddenly chokes on the massive volume because its diameter has been choked off by spring algae.
And when a bathtub's worth of water backs up into a machine that lives in your attic or your utility closet, bad things happen.
Very bad things. If your system is equipped with a modern float switch, the water rises in the drain pan, lifts a small bobber, and safely kills the power to the entire system to prevent flooding.
Okay, so you have a hot house, but no water damage.
Right. However, if that switch fails, or if you have an older system without one, that drain pan overflows right through your sheetrock ceiling. Yeah, the biggest system killer isn't a massive mechanical explosion. It's a blocked tube of water shutting down the entire electrical circuit.
A clogged pipe takes down the whole house. That is wild. Okay, so water and biology explain the drain issues. But if those are secretly building up all spring, what about the mechanical and chemical parts?
Right, the other failures.
Because whenever I talk to someone who AC died, they always use the exact same phrase. They say, it was working fine yesterday, and then it just suddenly quit.
Always.
Is there really such a thing as a sudden break? Or are there warning signs that just go completely unnoticed while the system sits there?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how these machines operate, sudden is almost always an illusion.
Really?
Yeah, let's look at the 48 calls for refrigerant leaks in the data set. Refrigerant leaks do not announce themselves with a pop and a hiss. They are incredibly stealthy.
How so?
Well, imagine a microscopic pinhole leak that develops in a copper coil in February.
In the dead of winter, when the unit isn't even turned on?
Exactly. The system slowly loses a tiny bit of its refrigerant charge week after week. But here's the trick. A system with low refrigerant can still cool a house just fine when it's only 85 degrees outside in May.
Because the heat load on the house is low enough that the crippled system can still keep up.
Right, you won't notice a thing.
Because it's not actually working hard yet.
Exactly. But it's a delicate chemical balance. When the temperature spikes to 98 degrees in June, the pressure dynamics change. The system simply cannot absorb enough heat.
And then what happens?
Because the refrigerant level is too low, the pressure inside the coil drops. When pressure drops, temperature drops. The coil actually drops below freezing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the ambient humidity in the air hits that freezing coil and turns into a solid block of ice, choking off all the airflow. The homeowner calls it a sudden breakdown, but it wasn't sudden at all.
It was a February leak, finally collecting a June bill.
That is exactly what the data shows. And the source material highlights a really crucial point about how people try to manage this.
Okay, what's that?
Refrigerant is part of a closed, sealed system. It doesn't get used up like gas in a car.
Right.
If a system is low on refrigerant, there's a physical leak, period. But many homeowners just ask a technician to top it off.
Just put a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly. The data makes it clear that simply topping off these newer, incredibly expensive refrigerants without finding and sealing that microscopic pinhole leak is just renting the air conditioner, not fixing it.
Renting it.
Yeah, you are paying a massive premium to rent comfort for a few weeks until it inevitably leaks out again.
Okay, so that's the silent chemical killer. But let's talk about the silent electrical killer capacitors. Because this one fascinated me. We had 42 calls, specifically for capacitors. What is the actual story here?
The capacitor is a brilliant example of a small part holding a large system hostage.
How so?
A capacitor is basically a specialized high-voltage battery. The heavy motors in your air conditioner, like the compressor and the big fan, require a massive jolt of torque to start spinning from a dead stop. Much more power than your house's normal electrical wiring can provide in a single instant.
Exactly. The capacitor stores up energy and acts like a jump starter, delivering that massive kick to get the motors moving.
And if the motor can't start, the whole system just sits there humming until it overheats.
Precisely. And the part itself is incredibly cheap. I mean, it costs less than a typical dinner tab, and it takes a technician maybe 20 minutes to swap out.
Wow.
But capacitors are highly sensitive to heat. They sit inside a metal cabinet, baking in the Oklahoma sun. Every single degree of extra temperature degrades their internal chemistry and shortens their lifespan.
So they just slow roast out there.
They do. And as they roast, their ability to store energy degrades. This capacity is measured in a unit called microfarads.
Okay.
The data shows that if a technician measures a capacitor and it is reading just 10% under its rated microfarads in May, it is not a maybe. It is an absolute guaranteed failure waiting to happen on a hot June afternoon.
Because the heat of that first big run will push that weakened chemistry over the edge. Which means your entire multi-$1,000 system is dead in the water because of a part that costs less than a pizza.
It's crazy, but true.
So what does this all mean for the person listening to this right now? I mean, understanding the mechanics of a capacitor is really cool, and picturing the algae blocking a 20-gallon drain is vivid. But how does this data actually protect the listener's comfort and, more importantly, their wallet?
This raises an important question about the hidden costs of breakdowns. It brings us to the economics of supply and demand and the reality of the scheduling queue.
The scheduling nightmare. This is the part of the data that I think nobody thinks about until they are actually living through it.
Absolutely.
If your AC drops dead in the very first June heat wave, so does everyone else's. It's a synchronized regional failure event.
Everyone's calling at the same time.
Exactly. If you want a technician to come out in May to check things over, you can usually get someone to your house in a day or two. But in late June, when that first heat wave breaks, everyone's idle machines simultaneously. Every single HVAC shop in central Oklahoma is running emergency boards.
You are entirely at the mercy of the queue. You are not just paying for a repair. You are paying for the misery of waiting in a sweltering house while hundreds of other people are trying to get that exact same technician to their home.
But let me push back a little here, because I think a lot of listeners might be feeling skeptical.
Sure.
If a capacitor is essentially a 50-cent part, or clearing a drain is just blowing out some algae, how are these companies justifying the massive bills?
Right.
We're looking at Hartzell's exact numbers here.
Yeah.
If you break down in June, you are paying a $99 dispatch fee just to get them in the truck, plus a $111 diagnostic fee once they arrive.
Yeah.
That is $210 before a single tool has been used or a single part has been purchased. Is this industry just price gouging people during a heat wave?
It's a completely fair question, but it comes down to the brutal economics of dispatching skilled labor. You aren't just buying the 50-cent part. You are paying for the massive overhead required to keep a fully stocked, insured commercial vehicle on the road. You are paying the hourly wage of a highly trained technician while they drive through traffic to get to your house.
Right. That makes sense.
You are paying for the diagnostic equipment, the liability insurance, and during a June heat wave, you are paying a premium for priority triage. The fixed costs of running a mobile service business mean that just pulling into your driveway costs the company money before they even ring your doorbell.
So the $210 is basically the cost of deployment.
Exactly. Which is why the preventative math is so compelling. Hartzell offers a maintenance plan that starts at $138 a year.
That's it?
Yeah. That includes the annual visit, the labor for the checkup, and crucially, it includes priority scheduling if something does go wrong later. The preventative plan literally pays for itself by preventing just one single June breakdown.
You avoid the deployment penalty, and you don't have to sweat on your couch for 3 days waiting for a truck.
Precisely.
Okay, so the math makes undeniable sense. But I want to arm the listener here.
Yeah.
If you, the listener, are going to take this advice and hire someone for a pre-summer check in May, what exactly should they be doing?
That is the most important question.
Because I've had guys come out, shine a flashlight around, listen to the fan hum, feel a pipe, and say, yep, it's cold, it runs. That doesn't feel like it's catching a February pinhole leak or a dying battery.
And it absolutely won't. It runs is an observation, not a diagnostic metric.
Right.
Feeling a pipe to see if it's cold is completely useless. The data provides a very specific checklist of what a real preventative maintenance check actually entails, and this is what you should be demanding.
What's on the list?
First, they need to be measuring the capacitor's microfarads directly with a multimeter.
Okay.
They have to compare the current reading against the part's specific rating to catch that 10% drop we talked about.
So no guessing. They need to show you the number on the meter.
Right. And for the refrigerant, they cannot just hook up a pressure gauge. They must verify the charge via superheat and subcooling measurements.
Okay, pause. What does that actually mean? I mean, superheat and subcooling sound like sci-fi terms.
They do sound complicated. Think of it as measuring the exact boiling and condensing points of the chemical. Superheat measures how much the refrigerant gas heats up after it turns into a vapor,
Okay.
which ensures no raw liquid is accidentally sent into the compressor to destroy it.
Oh, because liquid doesn't compress.
Exactly. Subcooling measures how much the liquid cools down after condensing, ensuring a solid column of liquid reaches the expansion valve.
Got it.
By calculating those exact temperatures against the pressure, a technician knows definitively if the chemical charge is perfectly balanced or if a microleak has started.
So they are doing actual thermodynamics math, not just saying pressure looks okay.
Precisely. Furthermore, they need to physically flush and treat that condensate drain line to kill the spring algae before it builds a dam.
To prevent the bathtub overflow.
Exactly. They need to wash the condenser coil fins from the inside out to ensure the heat can actually escape the metal cabinet. And they need to check the motor's amp draw.
Amp draw?
Yeah, think of amp draw like checking the motor's blood pressure. If a fan motor is starting to seize up or working too hard because of bad bearings, the electrical amps will spike.
So it's struggling.
Right, it's a huge warning sign that the motor is about to have a heart attack. And finally, they must tighten all electrical connections because vibrations over the winter can loosen wires and cause arcing.
Wow. So if you are listening to this, when you call a shop to book a spring tune-up, ask them directly on the phone, will your technician be testing subcooling and microfarads? Will they flush the drain?
Absolutely ask that.
If they say no or act like you're being difficult, hang up and call someone else.
You want to buy certainty. That checklist represents about 1 hour of actual focused labor. And the incredible thing is that 1 hour directly addresses 5 of the top 7 failure categories from their last 10 years of data.
That is the definition of high leverage maintenance. 1 hour of the right work in May neutralizes the vast majority of the risk in June.
It really does.
All right, let's bring this all together. We started with this deeply ingrained assumption that August is the ultimate AC assassin because it has the highest temperatures. But a decade of hard data from Hartzell's Heat and Air proves that June is the actual killer.
Yep.
It's the violent shock of the first heat wave hitting systems that have been sitting idle all winter, harboring secret leaks, degraded capacitors, and algae-filled drain pipes.
I do want to add one honest caveat that the data source itself points out, though.
What's that?
We are looking at one specific company's internal records. This represents about 1,000 classified repairs in central Oklahoma. So while the exact unit counts, the 47 calls versus 25 calls, are specific to this one shop's books, the underlying pattern is undeniable.
Right. The trend is what matters.
The massive spike in Yoon failures survives no matter how you slice their data. The physics of idle machines hitting sudden heat applies everywhere, whether you live in Oklahoma, Texas, or Ohio.
Absolutely. The takeaway for you, the listener, is profoundly boring but incredibly cheap and effective. Get your system properly checked in May.
Yes.
Clear the algae out of the drains, test the microfarads on those capacitors, verify the refrigerant with actual thermodynamics, and beat the emergency scheduling queues before the heat actually arrives.
Yeah.
Don't wait until you're sweating on the sofa to find out your 50-cent part died.
It's entirely about shifting from a reactive mindset to a proactive one. And this raises an important question, a final thought I want to leave you with.
Let's hear it.
If our basic common sense assumptions about the hottest month being the hardest on our air conditioners are completely backwards according to a decade of hard data, what else are we getting wrong?
Oh, that's a good point.
How many other seasonal maintenance routines for our cars, our homes, or even our own personal health are we currently doing at exactly the wrong time of year just because it intuitively feels right?
That is something to chew on. Next time you are standing outside in August, sweating through your shirt, and you hear your AC humming happily along, just remember, it already fought its hardest battle 2 months ago. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.